Greetings, fellow modelers and collectors, and welcome to the all-new instructional video from Lister Model Works. In this video, we're going to be building and painting the new John F. Kennedy model kit from Pestilence Labs. This is a phenomenal kit, let me tell you. Everything has been sculpted so well and cast so well, it's not even funny. There are 3 cast resin parts, and all the rest are 3D printed. The rocking chair has even been 3D printed as one piece. Okay, here's the part breakdown. Here's the fireplace and the wall, the nameplate, that's also been 3D printed. The fireplace screen has been 3D printed, the logs and the rack that the logs set on. Even the andirons have been 3D printed. And all of these, since they're 3D printed, they're quite intricate. There's a lot of detail to them, so they didn't skimp on any details, let me tell you. The only thing about the screen, of course, is that there is no actual screen in it. Later on in the video, you'll see what I did for that. The andirons, they were really nicely sculpted and printed. Very intricate detailing. They were done quite well. So, you'll have no problem, with that at all. The logs, very well done. The rack that the logs sit in, again, that was one piece. The logs are one piece. A lot of detail there, even on the ends of the logs. A lot of the tree trunk detailing is there. I mean, come on, guys, you can't go wrong with this kit. Here's the head, very nicely sculpted. Likeness is very, very accurate. Michael Berglund sculpted this model, and he did a very, very good job on it. Here's the body, the legs, and then the upper body. There's no fit problems whatsoever with this model, I'm telling you. You don't even have to do any putty work. You shake the box and the parts just fall together. Even the arms. The arms attach, and there's no gaps. Except maybe where there would be a natural gap of where the sleeve actually would be sewn to the coat. Here's the picture frame. They even included a picture of PT-109 to go into the frame. The books and the bookends, very nicely done. Again, I mean, all the detailing is really there. They even included the They Live head and hands, as well as the picture. So if you wanted to do something from the movie They Live, you have that option, of course. And again, here's the body. This is what all the parts now have been primered. The body's been assembled. Again, no gaps or anything to worry about. Glue it together with some super glue. Prime the parts, and you're pretty much ready to go. And as I said earlier, the rocking chair was printed as one piece, which also included the cushions. So you have no problem assembling this model, I can tell you. Again, everything has been expertly cast. I mean, just, look at that wall, for example. The wall was one piece, the base was one piece, and you can see how you have these recessed areas where the fireplace just fits into there just like a glove. You may opt to do a little bit of putty work. There may be some seams, but I mean, the seams are so minimal it's not even funny. So you really don't even have to do any kind of putty work. There's some texture there on the carpet, so you can really kind of go nuts with the carpet. And then the edging. Now, when it came to the carpet, I did a little bit of research, and I discovered that the carpet during JFK's administration was kind of a blue-green. So using Deco Art Americana paint, I airbrushed on some blue-green. I do a lot of color mixing. If you watch any of my other videos, you'll find that out. I don't stock a lot of different colors. I do a lot of different color mixing. So this again was a mixture of the blue and green. It looks a little more green on the video, but it's actually a little bit more blue. Now that area I'm pointing to is going to be painted a kind of a buff color. So I wanted to just go with a kind of a neutral buff color. So I used white, and I used some cocoa. Again, Deco Art by Americana, or Americana Paint by Deco Art, whichever way you want to say it. These are some excellent quality paints. And here it is. I actually just brush painted that on because I didn't want to do any masking on the carpet. So I just simply took my time and I brush painted that buff color on what would be the bare floor. And now, and I also did along the front edge there because you could see the separation where the carpet and the floor were, actually separated with a line. And then, of course, I wanted to come back and do the actual edging of the base. Now, here's the fireplace all primered, ready to go. The fireplace was actually two colors. According to some photographs, the outer framing area with the columns was a kind of a tannish pink sort of color, and it was marble. And then the other part, the inside part, was a kind of a gray, and that was also marble. I ended up airbrushing the outer areas. The inner gray areas I did again by hand. But it seemed as though there were more, there was a larger area for that outer area. So here I used some light mocha, a color known as cinnamon stick, and then I added just a little bit of a pink to that color just to sort of give it that slight pinkish look, although it really didn't seem to work out all that well. Okay, so here I've got the airbrush ready to roll. I'm putting the paint in the color cup, and here it is. It does have a slight pinkish hue to it, I guess, but it ended up being a little more tan than I wanted, but that was okay because again, it's still, I guess it sort of reminded you of a little pink, that there was a little bit of pink in there. I still had to come back and paint the gray, the inner area, the inner frame. Okay, here is the inner section of the fireplace as well as the hearth. Now, for the marble effect, I took the edge of a brush and a slightly darker color, and I just sort of, using the edge of the brush with the very tip of the brush on a flat brush, I just sort of scraped it or ran it across in a horizontal fashion. And you can see here I'm taking the brush and I'm just sort of using the edges of the bristles with just enough paint just to apply a slightly darker tone. And then I did some squiggly lines to sort of try and simulate the marble effect. I did that, and I just varied the pattern. And I did the same thing with the gray, and as you can see, I used a very dark tone, and I created all the lines first using that. Then I came back and using a thinned down mix of the base color, that allowed me to lighten that color. And you can see the darker tones on the outer pinkish sections. Now I wanted to coat the fireplace with a little bit of a shine, so I used some Pledge or Future, and I just did a 50-50 of that and water to create a thinned down mix so it had just a slight sheen. Here's the wall. I ended up actually sanding the wall down, getting rid of all the primer, because I decided that I was going to use wallpaper. again, doing my research, I ran across one photo that looked as though there was wallpaper on the Oval Office wall on the upper section. And it was rather hard to tell, though, because it could have just been some sort of modeling of the photo. But I thought the wallpaper would give it a really nice finished off look. So I chose a wallpaper that I found on Etsy. This is the pattern here. So it's a kind of a light tannish color with a slightly darkish tannish pattern in it. So it doesn't really stand out all that stark. And I bought enough of this paper to do the entire wall section. And here it is. Once the paper was applied, I simply cut it into some section. Actually, it ended up being 3 sections. Now here's the fireplace in place against the wall. And you can really see the pattern here as well. I came back with an even darker pattern. And I used a thinner brush. And I just sort of swirled it a little bit so that it gave you that marble-like look. At least that's what I was trying for. I hope I did. I hope I ended up achieving it. The gray section didn't turn out quite as good, but I thought that upper section. Now you can see here where the wallpaper has been seamed on both sides of the fireplace. That minimized any seams by doing it that way. The logs are about to be painted. They were based in black. And then I came back using several colors. I used black and white for gray, a little bit of brown, and I just dry brushed all of that texture. And again, I hate to harp on it, but there's a lot of you guys out there who still are not dry brushing. And when you have all this texture on a model, no matter where it is, you need to dry brush so you can see all of that texture and really bring it out. I still see an awful lot of models out there where people are not dry brushing any texture. So it's important that you do that. So just look at all that texture now on the logs. I even dry brushed the grate so you can see all the ribs, you can see all the detailing, the edges of the metal. Look at that. There's an awful lot of guys out there who still are not doing that. And it's important because sculptors spend a lot of time putting all that texture in there. Now when it came to the nameplate, I based it in brown, tried to match the edging of the base as much as possible, and I simply came back with Testor's Metallic Gold, which as far as I'm concerned is still the best metallic on the market. I'm hard-pressed to find any acrylic really good metallic paint. I mean, look at the sheen on that. I don't think I could achieve that with any acrylic metallic. So the Testor's Metallics are still tops in my book as far as that goes. Okay, now when it came to the fireplace screen, I actually ended up putting real screen in it. I had some bridal veil material that I cut. I simply cut a rectangular section, glued it to the inner frame, the inner side of the fireplace screen, and then I simply, using a very sharp X-Acto, I cut off all the excess. And then I painted the whole thing black, and then I came back and brush painted the metallic gold on the frame, leaving the actual screen itself black. It really gave it a nice finished off look. Now when it came to the rocking chair, I simply chose my own color scheme. So I went with a slightly lighter wood color, almost like a maple wood color. I just simply mixed a much lighter shade of brown. I just like the lighter shade for some reason. I know it was supposed to be much darker because I had seen photos of the actual rocking chair. I also chose to paint the cushions in a very dark red, almost like a maroon color. And then I did apply a little bit of dry brushing to kind of weather them. Now when it came to the jacket, I started off with the shirt, and then once the shirt was airbrushed white, I then came back and I cut in the dark blue for the suit. I just opted to go with a dark blue for the suit, but first I had to airbrush the shirt white. And then I took a fine tip brush and I simply cut in by hand around the shirt. And after that, I painted the rest of the jacket, and then the tie was painted in just simply black. For some reason, the suit on camera looks almost like a blue-gray. It was actually a very dark blue. Now, when it came to the books and the bookends, I simply painted those by hand. I started off by painting everything black, and then I came back and I painted the books some different colors: blue, green, a dark red, a brown, and then I painted the bookends in bronze, or brass rather. Next was the head and the hands. So I started with the head. I based it out in a kind of a dark flesh, and then I came back using a lighter tone flesh, and while I held the head back, I aimed the airbrush from the top. Now, that allowed the spray to hit the raised areas of the head, the bridge of the nose, the cheekbones, the chin, and that's what gives a really nice highlight and shadow effect, as you can see there. I still ended up coming back with some darker pastel chalks, and I emphasized like the laugh lines, the areas like around the eyes. As you can see here, there's a little bit more emphasis with the highlight and the shadow, plus the hair has been blocked in. A lot of times when you block the hair in on a figure, it allows you to see just how much better the face is really going to look. And here it is, the face is finished, the lips are painted, the eyebrows in, and the eyes. I did the eyes in blue because there was a reference that he had blue eyes. I painted the hands. Here the logs are in place. Now I've got the fireplace screen in place. Next came the flag. The flag that actually came with the kit was 3D printed, and it was already wrapped. And it was just, by gravity, it was just sort of hanging there. And I thought that was going to be a little difficult for me to paint. So I cut the flagpole, cut the top off and the bottom pedestal, and I used a wooden dowel to make my own flagpole. Then when it came to the flag itself, I decided to get one printed. Now here I did a test. I wanted to see if the Mod Podge was going to work, if I was going to get, roughly the same effect. It actually, as far as I was concerned, it was rather successful. I rather liked how the test turned out. So I ended up getting a flag printed. I glued the edge to the flagpole once I had the flagpole stained, and then I simply glued it to the flagpole. I took some of the Mod Podge mixture and I applied it to the edges of the flag, and then I simply wrapped it in the shape of a cone, and that way the glue held to the other side of the flag, and it just naturally fell down. It draped down. I thought it turned out pretty good. Probably not perfect, but in lieu of painting the resin flag, I thought this actually worked out rather well. You just have to make sure you apply enough glue so that it sticks to itself, and then you're good to go. I just had to make sure that the edge was glued securely enough, and again, I just simply thought it would be easier and better looking than me trying to paint the little stars and the stripes. Now, if you're up for the task, by all means, go ahead and paint the resin flag. And here's the finished kit. You can either glue the rocking chair in place or just leave it set on the base. I opted to leave it set on the base. And there's the flag in place. Again, this is a really great kit. I highly recommend you purchase this kit. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. Absolutely a lot of fun. So, this is Phil Lister. Until next time, get out there, and build a model.